In previous videos, I presented irrefutable evidence of life after death and explained where we go afterward. I also discussed what dreams really are and revealed the tragic consequences that suicides face after their death. I shared several of the many NDE stories I have gathered over more than 20 years of researching the phenomenon of death and life beyond the physical body. If you haven't watched them yet, I encourage you to click on the name of my channel and the video tab, where you can see all the videos I've created so far. In this episode, I will present another NDE story from my collection. This is the story of a teenage girl who experienced clinical death after falling from a tree. During this experience, she met those who had already passed away and described what their existence looks like in the afterlife.
Since I was a child, I loved climbing trees. The taller, the better. I was a real tomboy. My female peers were much calmer than me, so I usually hung out with the boys. They were amazed by my physical agility. We often raced to climb trees, and sometimes the boys had to swallow the bitterness of defeat. I climbed with great ease, and my confidence grew. But the more it grew, the less cautious I became. When I was 15, I learned a painful lesson. There was an old wild cherry tree near the forest. It was July, and its fruits were already ripe, covering the entire tree in visible red. Just the sight of them made our mouths water. We went there with the boys, and without much thought, started climbing. A competition began for the best spots, which provided easy access to the ripest fruits. I managed to climb almost to the top. The fruits within my reach were large and deep red, sweet with a hint of cherry tartness. After eating some, we started throwing the pits at each other or simply spitting them at each other, having a great time. At least until the moment when I tried to dodge a pit, and my hand slipped from a branch. I was holding a cherry in my other hand, and I started falling. I tried to grab a branch, but everything happened so fast, and I couldn't. I just bounced off a few branches and crashed to the ground. I felt the impact, but immediately felt like I bounced off the ground and flew up. I could see everything from above, so I thought I was back in the tree. But when I looked around, I realized I was hovering next to it. I saw my friends shouting to each other in panic as they quickly descended the tree, glancing down at my motionless body lying on the ground. I saw them, my body, the clouds passing through the blue sky, and the surrounding field and forest. It was incredible. Looking at my body, I understood that I had died, but it didn't scare me. I just felt sorry for the boys, who were terrified by the situation. One of them pulled out his phone and called an ambulance, shaking and stuttering. Another knelt beside me, gently tapping my body on the shoulder, calling my name as if trying to wake me up. I replied that I was right here, but none of them could hear me. Eventually, I decided I needed to figure out how to handle this situation. I felt light and calm. The feeling of love and bliss grew stronger the longer I looked at my body and the boys around it. I knew I had to move on because this life was over. But I wondered, where should I go? What should I do with myself? Then, a ball of bright light appeared before me, quickly expanding and soon becoming an entrance to a tunnel. As soon as it opened, I felt immense love emanating from it. I felt even more at peace, so I figured it must lead to a pleasant place. I tried to walk towards it, but I was floating, so walking didn't work. The tunnel seemed to understand my intention and began to gently pull me in. I started making swimming-like movements, and I noticed I was moving faster through it. The inside was very bright but not blinding. I was flying through it faster and faster, but I felt no fear. Eventually, I saw a blue light at the end, and after a moment, I emerged into it. The blue turned out to be the sky, with white and golden clouds drifting through it. I flew among them for a while. Then I saw green below. There was land beneath me, so I began to descend. The clouds stayed above, revealing more and more of the terrain. I saw vast meadows and forests with exotic vegetation. I don't know if these species also existed on Earth. Suddenly, among the meadows and forests, I saw a large, white city. At its center was a vast square that looked more like a Greek amphitheater because it was surrounded by spectator-like stands. From this square, streets paved with white cobblestones radiated outward. Along them were various buildings, some dome-shaped with glass roofs, others like Grand Greek or Roman villas, and still others smaller and of varied architecture. But all the buildings were white. I started approaching them when I saw 3 luminous spheres flying out of the city and coming toward me. I was curious but not scared. I felt no negative emotions, just calmness and bliss. I was excited by what was happening. When the spheres reached me, they instantly changed shape and took on human forms. I was shocked because it turned out to be my deceased grandfather, accompanied by my uncle and aunt, who had died in a car accident 2 years earlier. I was especially fond of my grandfather during his lifetime. So when I saw them, I started crying. Although I didn't feel any tears on my cheeks, it was more of an inner cry of emotion, like pure feeling. They looked like they did in life, but their clothes were different, like white robes. We greeted each other and immediately embraced. I could feel their bodies, but not like earthly ones. Our bodies were now made of something different. I can't explain what. You could feel them, but they weren't as solid as earthly bodies, and it seemed like they could change into spheres of light, maybe even other forms. They told me they had missed me very much. I replied that I missed them too. The intense emotion did not subside. I asked them what they were doing here and what this place was. Grandpa said it was a place of rest for those who had recently died. I asked what they did here all day. He smiled and said there were no days or nights, no time here, only now. The beings here do not need sleep like on Earth. They are constantly conscious. I couldn't wrap my head around it, so I asked again what they did here. Grandpa replied that they do many things. They talk and exchange experiences from their past lives, explore this beautiful world, and gain various knowledge from teachers. They also have their own homes, where they can create their own reality. He explained that inside the house, one can create anything, even if it's much larger than the house itself. They can create vast areas inside, which can then turn back into the house's interior, from which they can go outside to the city. I couldn't believe what I was hearing, but I liked it a lot. I wanted him to take me to his house and show me how to create such things. Grandpa read my thoughts with ease and said he could take me there. But then, an elderly man with a grey beard appeared before us. I wondered who he was, and Grandpa again read my thoughts and said he was one of their teachers. I then received a message from this man. He told me that I hadn't fulfilled my mission on Earth yet and had to return immediately. I asked what mission he was talking about. He replied that I would find out when I returned. I looked at Grandpa and shouted that I didn't want to go back, but he just looked at me helplessly. The teacher then added that I would find myself here again someday, but now I must return. I saw a flash of golden white light, and I woke up in the hospital.
And so, another NDE story gives us a wealth of knowledge about life and death. It resembles the stories shared by Dr. Michael Newton's patients under hypnotic regression, which also describe places where souls rest after their incarnations. There, too, were teachers, and the beings spent their time in ways similar to what our protagonist described. However, from the accounts of Dr. Newton's patients, we can draw very unsettling conclusions. The primary goal of the beings in this place was to prepare for another incarnation, which often involved great suffering. These masters or teachers urged them to reincarnate, arguing that it was necessary for the development of their consciousness and the accumulation of experiences. Who knows? Maybe our protagonist found herself in the same place, but didn't have time to learn all the rules because she had to return to her body. In any case, I believe that a place that urges or forces beings into another incarnation involving suffering is deeply troubling and should be approached with caution. Every being is free by nature and regains that freedom after completing an incarnation. The question is whether they possess enough knowledge not to let that freedom be limited by another incarnation in a physical body. You can read more about this in my publication, where I have compiled all the knowledge about life beyond the material body that I have gathered over more than 20 years of research and personal experiences. I see that some of you have already purchased it, and I sincerely thank you. If you have any questions or concerns, feel free to contact me at the email address provided in the book. I also noticed that many viewers are not subscribed to my channel, so if you don't want to miss future videos and would like to support me in spreading this knowledge, I encourage you to subscribe. It's just a few clicks, but it's a great support for the growth of the channel. That's all for today. Thank you for your time and see you in the next episode.